So hi, One Liquid Noise Podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with...
I'm Ryland from Origami Angel.
And we have some questions to say about their new mixtape, The Brightest Days. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
Thank you. It's really cool. I'm very, very excited that it's finally out. Something that we've been really proud of working on for the last year and change. I'm just delighted that anyone enjoys it, you know?
Hell yeah. It bangs, bro.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Crushed it.
And I think you guys went about the right way naming it a mixtape, because like I thought you guys were just like trying to be quirky and different, but after listening to it, it makes it makes total sense as to why you named it. Like,
thank you.
Called it that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of like it felt like there's part of me that's like, is it a cop out? Because to me, it's like, okay, these songs obviously they fit as a collection, but they don't have as much of a cohesive like song to song thing like sonically as our other records have. This one does it more in just terms of like thematically and like where it all is, and it kind of feels like almost like a playlist that got thrown together, you know, like something that like a friend would make for you, like a 20-minute playlist just to go outside and have a walk with, but mixed by the same performers. So like it there's part of me is like, I hope it's not like that, because it's not really a full length, you know, it's like 22 minutes, 8 songs, but it's also not really an EP. Like, I don't know what to call it, but I'm glad that you find it authentic.
Yeah, and it feels like since Gami Gang, you guys have kind of just been doing whatever the fuck you want. I mean, you had the two EPs that were just kind of whatever, and now you're just like 22 minutes of songs that like fit together but really don't. Do want to touch on the EPs really quickly because we didn't get to talk about them, and just kind of chat about the idea behind those. I guess it's weird. I haven't had much time to think about them since they've come out. Since like from the moment that they came out, we immediately toured like the next week, and then came back for a second, but some crazy life stuff's going on, and then we're right back out the door right after that for another headliner. And it was like, oh, I kind of forget that they are just this part of this discography that came out. It's like less than a year ago. The idea was just at one point we're talking about like all the extremities that we did on Gami Gang, and just how of it being a double LP, and just like how many different things we tried to pull into our sound and kind of combine with our sound. And then I guess for me, it sort of started as like experimentation of just like, what if there isn't anything being pulled into what I thought of as like our sound? And it's like, what if we just stretch what that means? You know, like what if we just have it? And so what's really interesting is 2 of those songs on the acoustic EP on Return are like really old. Like they from like when I was like a senior in high school. And I like started writing a lot of the music that would end up becoming and like turning into Gami songs later around that time. But those are 2 that we like never really touched ever. But I was like, oh, they're still like pretty decent. But they felt so different from where we were at that moment that I kind of just had this moment to be like, okay, we can for sure like utilize these in a different way than we would have back then and how we would right now, and just like make it its own little project. And I don't know, I've always wanted to do something like soft like that, but there was just the thing, it's like we don't really want to be like a soft band, you know, like we want to have dynamic, we want to do all this stuff. And then I guess we just thought it would be really interesting to do 3 really, really heavy metalcore songs too. And so that kind of just was a more of like a fun, like spur of the moment, like there was no like big picture type thing. It was just like, oh yeah, that would be nice to couple it with. And then it just felt like something that we would do, you know? Like to drop 2 EPs like right next to each other. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's kind of like we stumbled into it, but it ended up being really fun. Makes sense.
Hell yeah. Fucking love it. So is
there
any meaning behind the mixtape title or cover art?
The cover art or the title. So there's been some meaning for sure. This is like a strange record in terms of the name for me, where it's like usually I would think of a project name before writing it, right? Like that was Summer City, that was Gen 3. Well, Gen 3 kind of is different. Doing the most was like that. I would always like have this thing as like a fixation as a writer to be like, oh, this is going to fit into this and this aesthetic, and I would try to craft all these songs around it. But this one was kind of just like I was writing a like a bunch of weird stuff. Like I was in this bag for, and we can get into that later, like inspirations and stuff. But I wrote the first song, which is the title track, like second. It was the second song that I came up with. It just picked up one of an old ukulele that I had like when I was in this phase in high school. I was like, all right, I'll pick it back up for a second. Start playing it. I was like, okay, that could be a track. We'll just do it like that and then do it heavy. And it was a very stream of consciousness song. And I was like, if this is gonna be the first song, and it says the brightest days, and I was like, in the sentence, it sounds so much different than how it does as a title. And I really liked that kind of dichotomy there, I guess, or the duality of like it feels different depending on where it is. And I guess what I was trying to paint in my head, like when I started getting the collections of the songs, is like I want it to be portrayed as this super like beautiful, like sunny feeling, and then underneath it is kind of like where it gets flipped on its head and gets a little even like darker than we've ever gone. So like I guess it was just like it just made sense. So it wasn't a huge like, of course it's got to be this. It just like made sense at that time. But the thing that as soon as we had the title was always in my head was I really really just wanted it to be folded and origami. The letters. There was different versions that went through my brain, but it ended up to this one point where I was like, I think like I don't know, I just like have this time and this like idea of like what it's supposed to be. And I just needed to do it myself. Like I needed to fold the origami myself, and it was crazy. We set it up so that it's like it was. I wonder if I still have. No, I don't have it around here. For a long time in my house, where it was just like on this cardboard thing, and I had the letters on top of it, and there was fishing wire like gone through it, and it's like 3 feet of string from this cardboard thing, and then we drove out. Me and my partner drove out on like in February. The only sunny day that we could find, about 2 hours to this beach. We wanted to keep the East Coast beach theme. Rehoboth Beach is in Delaware. It's about 2 hours from us. And it was so crazy because it was so windy, but it was like the only sunny day. It was like the only day that we could make it look like it was actually sort of like summer-y. And it was still like a little gray. But kind of fit the album, I guess. We had to like take like so many videos of it. I mean, like standing on this bench right on the boardwalk. And we tried a bunch of other things, but it just made sense to do it across the beach and over the fence, over the dunes or whatever. And like we had this broomstick like duct tapes to it, and I was like holding it over top, and we'd like take a video and like see if we could freeze the frame to where it like felt good. So we did that for like 2 hours when we could, and the sun started going over. Like I guess we'll go home and like see if we got something, and we just like went through and then we found the right frame to work on it. So in a weird way, the cover art like has a little bit more meaning to me than the name of the album itself, you know. But it was a fun experience for sure.
That's definitely an experience.
I never would have thought that you did that like by hand. Not like it's not edited like at all.
Nah, no edits.
What the fuck? That's fucking insane.
That's just a picture. Yeah. It really had to be that way too. Like I really couldn't envision it in any other way. If it like, even though like I could for sure we could have, right? Like we for sure could have just like done it on front of like a green screen or a white background and then like put it on the thing. But like something about like the nature affecting it, like the wind, and it's kind of like jumbled and stuff like that. Like that was so like part of it to me. Like I really wanted it to feel like it was this like still life almost, you know, just like taken right out of a setting. And we don't like, we've got, it's like a different type of record cover. Like we've done a lot of like pictures of stuff and like pictures of like my parents' house with me on a bike on it, or an EP, and then like obviously what Arby did with Summer City, and it's very edited. But this one I just wanted it to feel like it was straight up just like a picture on someone's phone from a vacation, but like with this thing just floating in it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy.
Yes, for absolutely. Sure. But that's incredible. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this record?
Yeah, for sure. It was a little bit embarrassing. I was just talking about someone about this recently. This record came right after, like, I figured out, like, for my whole life, I went without caving in, without dimming. But it's right when I figured out that I actually low-key fucked with Weezer. Dude,
I'm going to see them next week, actually.
Yeah, that's bad.
Me too. Me
Nice.
too. I'm seeing them on Friday because of like I always like my whole life like I was like I'm not into it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And honestly, I was valid for that. Like I didn't get it. But so I distinctly remember early like pandemic May, like 2020, May 2020. I was like just chilling one night, like it was like after like 2 a.m. about to shower. And I was like, matter of fact, I saw someone tweeting about something I had to do with Weezer because I think they had some shit upcoming.
Yeah.
That got delayed. And I was like, let me like just go through his discography real quick. And I went to this, on the Spotify thing, scrolling down to the White album, which I'd heard people talk about, but I never really listened to ever. Like I never really liked anything that I heard from the old stuff, so I never thought I liked their new shit. I was like, you know what? Let me try this. So I'm listening on my phone, like right before that broken phone speaker, right before I'm about to go like take a shower. I'm just chilling with that towel in my hand and some shorts on. I'm like, okay, cool. I like this intro. I like this track one. Actually, this is kind of a banger. Okay, this third chorus is kind of sick. Goes in the second song. I'm like, wait, this is kind of sicker. Goes in this third song, and I'm like, all right, this is weird. But then it comes back, gets me the fourth song, best thing I've heard in my life. Fifth song, best thing I heard in my life. And I'm like, yo, I might fucking love this. Like, this might be about the. So I listened to this whole thing through on my phone speaker. And I'm like, damn. All right, fuck it. One more time. Listen to the whole thing through again. Just like, so I'm up until like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, yo, I think I like this band now. And this is probably like the first couple weeks of May. And then I was like, I love it. I get into the lore. So they wrote that album as like this very like West Coast summery beachy theme. And like the album is them on a beach and it's all like whited out and white sand and stuff like that. So much like little surf stuff. There's like these Beach Boys things. And I was like, that's so cool. It's just like what as this like West Coast summery anthem thing that you hear as like a radio rock song every year, but they did it with their own little flavor. And then I guess like probably like late one night around that time, I was just like, what if like we tried to do that for like a thing, but like did it like East Coast though? I'm like, what if we did like the things that you don't hear as much on this like grandiose version of like on the radio, like the radio summer songs. Like what if it was like actually kind of shitty though? Like what if that was like the lifestyle? What if the lifestyle wasn't palm trees? What if it was swamp? So I don't know. And once I had that, I was like, that kind of feels like something we would do, and let's started writing some songs. I was like, okay, I know I want to be surfy. First song I started writing around is like, so this is like pure isolation too at the time, right? So like I'm not really jamming with Pat. I'm not really doing anything other than like vibing. And also this is also on the tail end / right during, I had some crazy like medical shit going on. So it was like super nerve-wracking. I was like actually not very mobile. So I was kind of just in my bedroom back when I lived with my parents because I was back with them for the early parts of COVID. And I was just in that bedroom, not really moving like at all. Every day I kind of just vibe, went up 2 p.m., got coffee and some toast, went back to fucking like I was very going through it physically. I won't get into it. It's a little crazy, but it was wild. So all I could do was just like pick up this guitar and sit down and like riff on shit and listen to the White Album. So I was just doing that for like 2 weeks, and I eventually hit this flow where it was like, all right, I'll come up with this riff, I'll write like the ideas of this riff and like fake demo it out, like no vocals and stuff, and I'll listen to it for a day and I'll like kind of get a thing done, and then the next day when I wake up, I'll actually demo it out and do some like vocals to it, and then right after that I'll finish that process and then be like, okay, what's next? Start one at the night, kind of fake it out, and then the next day come and try to finish that one up. And I had this like flow for like a week where it's like finish one, start one, finish one, start one, all the way stacking up. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, kind of cool. I was like, oh, I actually might be too many songs. Like, I don't know if we can do like a 15 songs of this. But so what ended up happening is I kind of just went into the vault, and then things got more real for music, maybe in that, next year, like of life, like you could do things again. And it kind of just got pushed aside. It's like, oh, we'll do this when we do it. Like we got other things that we got a backlog too, got to catch up on this stuff, but that'll always be there. And then, yeah, when the time was right, we just revisited them, chopped it down to 8 tracks that we really wanted to showcase, and then hit the studio. But it was like a very manic and crazy writing period, where it's like, I've never been that influenced by only one thing before, you know, or it's just like, oh, this is just Weezer White Album. And shit. Like I
Although I've never listened to the White Album, I know I said I'm going to see Weezer. It's because Joyce Manor's opening. My partner wants to see Joyce Manor. Weezer just happens to be there. Never listened to the White Album, but now that you're telling me that like Weezer influenced this project, I see it. I see it now.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple moments. I think there's some songs where you'd be like, I don't know, but then there's like track 7, My PG County Summer is like got the Weezer. It's like the one where it like literally is just like coming out. I'm like, oh fuck, whatever.
Fair enough.
Out of left field shit. I did not expect that at all. Okay.
Left field.
It's crazy. So what song off this mixtape took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
Longest to write was definitely the last song, Few and Far Between, track 8. Only because like I had the first, like the intro, which like turns into the first verse, and then but I didn't so like I had this pre-chorus originally that was like I was like, oh, I might change this, I might not. And then I had the chorus, I knew the chorus was gonna be good, and I had this like, second verse that wasn't like really what I wanted it to be. It was just kind of like the first verse, but like big, which is a little weird, and it always felt like a little like just undercooked. And then so that's actually like the last thing before we like went in to say like, okay, we actually have the 8 tracks that we want. Excuse me. Was me being like, okay, I'm gonna rewrite this song, and if the record feels good with that as the closer and these 8 songs, I think that's our 8 songs, because I knew that was gonna be the closer. Fixed it up, wrote a new pre-chorus, and did like twisted the first verses on its head to where it's like doing the same thing vocally, but it's like minor chords underneath it instead of the major chords, just to like actually make it build to something instead of kind of just being in this one place the whole time. And that was like a part A, part B of my life, where it's like the 22-year-old version of me right now and a 24-year-old version, and like with like 18 months in between. And it's so hard with this one, just because like we were talking earlier, just the nature of it being like these 8 different like whatever. It's so hard to pick a favorite. Because like I've done this before where I'm like, oh, I wonder what it is, and it's definitely this, and then the next day I'm like, well, it might be this one. The weird thing is I had a least favorite. I had track 5, Second Best Friend, was my least favorite for a long time, but I would show it to people and I'd be like, that is the best song you've ever written. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, so maybe it's not my least favorite. I don't know what to say. Because like it almost didn't make it. And the person we ended up doing the record with, Drew, he was like, if you don't put it on there, I'm gonna be like really upset. I'm gonna be like, oh, we're like, all right, we got to do it. We got to do it. Just because everyone was telling me, Pat was telling me, Jake from Counterintuitive was telling me, Alex Martin, our booking agent, was telling me, like everyone was like, got to do it. All right, I'll believe it. But if my favorite today, if you had to ask me my favorite today, it would be a cop out to say the end. It'd also be a cop out to say the first song. But I like, and there's just moments. There's like moments that are my favorite. You know, like there's a moment in track 4, Kobayashi and Maru, where I'm like, that's like one of my favorite things we've ever done, where it's got this like and it just goes like smooth at the end of it. So that makes that one like maybe my favorite. But I really couldn't say, not to like hype it up. It's just like they all have such different moments in them that I'm very like proud of, and proud that we were able to showcase. So I don't know. That's just the nature of the beast when you do a mixtape. It's hard to tell what you.
Of course, man. Of course,
it happens.
I do want to talk about. Thank You, New Jersey opened the rollout for this. Right around that time was when the tour started in New Jersey. Was that a happy coincidence, or was it planned that way?
Oh, I actually think that there was once a route of the tour that got approved where we started on the 21st and did not play New Jersey. So we like started on the 21st, and then the next version, I can't remember exactly what had happened, but the next version of the route that we had Asbury Park there after we had talked about starting that as the rollout. And then I think that me and Alex had a discussion about like, we have to do it, right? Like we have to make it 3 hours. So we were thinking about doing it at the end. But then, so it kind of got a little bit shifted. So it was like almost a happy coincidence, but definitely there was some influence there for sure.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned the closer was intended to be the closer. Was the opener intended to be the opener, or was that like a shuffling kind of thing?
So the way that I like usually try to write, I feel like we might have talked about this before. Like I'll try to write stuff like linearly, like
Mhm.
as a project. I originally was like in a more goofy mood about the record when I first started writing songs, and started with "Thank You, New Jersey," but that was before we had written "The Brightest Days." So
Mhm.
it was just that, and I was like, that'll be the opener. It'll be like kind of like crazy impact off the beginning.
Mhm.
Then as soon as I started writing that "The Brightest Days," when I was like, all right, the idea that I have for this and it going into this riff, this kind of has to be track one. Like this wouldn't make sense anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then with that came the name, came the whole vibe for the record. But yeah, so it was like, okay, we got New Jersey, and then we'll figure it out from there. And then it was like, oh no, we're actually just gonna move that over one because that makes sense as the second song too.
Mhm.
And then so the opener, as soon as it was written, it was like that's the opener, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the closer was the last song like written for the project in terms of like, actually I don't even know if that's true. Such a fog back then, but it was definitely written as like, this is the closer for sure.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
has to be.
Okay.
And you just mentioned, and I'm sure we've talked about in the past, that you write linearly. Was there a struggle with that with this kind of project, or did it still like kind of come the same way for you?
Yeah, I honestly feel like in this project it might have like helped it just doing that. Like it might have been easier to do this because as soon as like, so I knew that we are gonna have the Brightest Days and Thank You New Jersey opening it as that 1-2, and then it was
Mhm.
kind of like I would listen to those two together, and I'm like, all right, that's a good start. It's like a really like solid start for what this vision I have. It's like, what am I missing? And versus like, what have I been messing around with, or like, what am I missing, and what can I come up with right now that would fit really well right after this song ends? And that
Mhm.
gave me the riff for Picture Frame, and then started writing that, and it's like, all right, so this is like chilled out more, almost like some bare naked lady shit, and then like like eventually has this like very like 70s chorus that happens a bunch of, this is a very left field song in our discography, I feel like. And then it just happened to be so like at the end of that, what am I feeling like I need? Like, what do I need back? And I'm like,
Mhm.
actually, I need more energy than we've had at all before. Like, I really need speed here. And that's where
Mhm.
you get the Kobayashi Maru. And
Mhm.
at the end of that, it's like, I knew that this big outro could just work well going into this other like riffy thing. And it's like more of a mid tempo, like contemporary rock thing in Second Best Friend. I knew that's ending big. So that's where we're going to put this like acoustic thing.
Mhm.
I knew the acoustic thing is ending chill, so that's where we're gonna have the big PG County Summer like swell up, like go crazy, big synth thing. And
Mhm.
then yeah, I guess it just like helped on this one more than it has before. Before I've always been like, what could we do? And there's all these options. But this one, the nature of the beast being like, oh, it's gonna be like these 8 completely different, like a collection of shit that someone would throw together on a Spotify playlist. I was like, oh, kind of like I know what I want, you know, like
Yeah.
All right.
it was weird but cool.
Okay, that honestly wasn't the answer I was expecting. I kind of figured that like maybe having all of those options would have actually made it harder for you to write linearly instead of like
Yeah.
for instance, Gami Gang, where it's like I would kind of expect like where you wanted it to go next. But all right,
Yeah. I think just because it was less songs too, and like the idea was that it was going to be shorter, that
Mhm.
definitely helped.
Mhm.
Like on LP2, I did get a bit of option paralysis. Like when I would be writing stuff, just be like, I'm like, if I was listening to like a cut of it on LP2 on Gami Gang, I'd be like, oh, like I don't know how I feel about this song coming here, but then I'm like, I also just listened to 35 minutes of music, so like I don't know if my ears are fresh enough to tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So like that's, you can get option paralysis. I think this being shorter and being so left field, it actually like, it the answer was easier for me. Where it was like on Gami Gang, it was more of like, it's like, okay, I want to have this full song. It's like, I don't know, I was trying to like write from scratch there instead of write from an idea, I guess.
Gotcha.
So it definitely has uh some perks for sure in this style.
all right.
Sure. So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating this record?
Yeah, honestly, it's so strange, and like we touched on earlier, there's almost like two parts of creating this record, where it was like the writing this, and then there's this like hiatus of this material for like 18 months, and then the maybe more, I don't know, it might have been over 2 years, to be honest, from the time it was
Yeah.
written. Last year was 2022, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about This is about 2 years to the moment that we pressed play to record. There was the headspace of writing it, which was I'm in this medical fog. I'm in this, this early COVID thing. Everybody's kind of going through this shit together, and it's just like, you're so isolated. This was, we're canceling tours that are supposed to happen around this time. We're like, life is shifting. To me, it's like I'm writing this, also kind of thinking, does this ever even happen? Like, is this just another record this? This is actually before we recorded Gami Gang, I was writing these songs. It's like, that's just an overwhelming amount. It's like I have this double LP that me and Pat have already done everything for, but we need to record it. It's like, how we're going to do that? It's like, I'm not even thinking about how we're going to do it because we don't even know. Are these songs just pointless, and are they in the void? Or are they just some collection, just this folder on my desktop? And that's kind of what they were for a bit, The fog was kind of there. It kind of felt a little bit just like, okay, we could try whatever. Felt a little bit hopeless in regards to music, but it was definitely like an outlet to try to be like, well, you can still try things. I can still exercise muscles as a songwriter. And then the headspace of actually like pressing play, like recording the record, it was a bit foggy because originally we had time to track the drums in like July of 2022. And the day before, we were supposed to go up or it might have been the day of, I tested positive for COVID for the second time. So we had to scratch those dates, reschedule them to August, right? But so it'll all make sense about how crazy it was if the whole timeline's there. So the original timeline was like beginning of July, record these drums. Drums will be edited. We recorded them with Jake Checkaway, he mixed Gami Gang and mastered it. He recorded Somewhere City. And he's done a bunch of mixing for us before. He tracked both EPs and he produced Return. So he's done a lot of stuff. He's very familiar with Jake, so he's the GOAT. We were like, all right, we'll do these drums with Jake. And then we'll get them edited for however we need to in the month, and then we'll take our time and go take the drums and record the rest of it with our front of house engineer, Drew Porter Latin. He is someone that I met. Also, one of his favorite albums ever is the White Album by Weezer. Nice. Figured that out right before we started. We're right on our first tour we ever did together, where he was touring with another band, but he was doing our sound. We figured that out, and we're like, oh shit, we kind of have to do this with this guy because he does production. He's great. His band's awesome. Yeah. So just made sense. So we had done a tour with Drew. We were like, okay, we really want to record this, like the bass, the guitar, and the vocals with him. Just because I think for this project, this would be perfect for him. It's right up his alley. We were going to go down to Florida one way or another, drive or fly or whatever, however it would make sense. And we had that month in between. What ended up happening is, so those dates get scratched in July. We had to push them to August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Then August 4th, we went home on the 3rd from Pennsylvania. So like 4 hours from us. Mm-hmm. Pat's done now. He's done with all the drums. Jake is editing the drums on the 4th. I just moved into this place on the day we actually went up to on July 30th. Mm-hmm. The day that we went up to record the drums was that day. We went up the day before we actually started doing it. So we moved in here, left to go to Pennsylvania that night, did it for those 3 days, came back here for like 2 hours, and then drove 11 hours to Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh my God.
On the 5th. It might have actually been the 4th. I'm not totally sure. It was something crazy like that. And then, so went up, stayed with Drew for like 11 days. And then he has a studio that he works out of in Florida. And then we were just in there, like really on our own schedule. So that was like, it felt crazy. It was like, how is this even, this is just like so rapid pace and everything got pushed. But the drums were super sick. It was great to be in that environment. And then kind of as soon as we got to Florida, as soon as me and Drew linked up, it was like, all right, like this is going to happen. This is going to be awesome. It was super sweet. That was like, me and Drew are already really, really great friends. And that became like a time where he's like, okay, this is like one of my best friends on this earth type thing, like bonded in a crazy way. And it was super sick. It ended up being like probably the greatest recording experience that I've ever been a part of. And so polar opposite from the last like longer thing that we tried to do, which was Gami Gang, which was me recording it in my bedroom, and going insane, you know, that like, so it was like the polar opposite of that. It's like, oh, we're working with Drew and he's like, you know, he's this crazy positive force and just the funniest dude you'd ever meet in your life, but also such a hard worker and such a knowledgeable person in audio and just loves music. And it makes you feel like what you're working on is amazing. And I feel like that's how you really get a great product, is with mentality like that. And he definitely pulled a lot of things and made this record the way that it was. And yeah, it's the headspace there is just like, it was just in the moment, you know. I can't even really describe it. It was great. And we left that experience being like, all right, this is the fucking coolest thing we've ever done. Like it just feels like we left it out in there, and then it just like you can feel the energy on the songs.
Absolutely. So how did you kind of stay motivated while you were creating this mixtape? Because as you said, Gami Gang was written, just wasn't recorded yet. And then that's a fucking, firstly, that's a fucking double album. That's a double LP. That's a lot of shit. And then on top of that, you're like, okay, we have that done. Can't record it. Don't even know if it's coming out because COVID was fucking massive at the time. And then you start this. So you didn't even have the big project out yet, and you started a completely different project. How did you kind of keep up the motivation and keep up kind of that steam going with you and Pat?
Yeah, honestly, it was hard to really even say that we did kind of keep it up because there were so many breaks in between. I guess it was more of like these songs, since they were so different, it was like a fresh bag of tricks. They acted kind of like a happy light at the end of the tunnel, like for whatever we're doing, because you know it was a similar thing with Gami Gang where like a lot of the songs were written for a long time and it was kind of like, okay, now we just got to act on this and like make it happen. And that was one of the toughest things, just as a producer, like being the one to press play on everything and like do all this shit and like manage all of this stuff that is twice, if not 2.5 times bigger in terms of the projects that we've done ever before. And it's like, it almost acted as like the light at the end of the tunnel for that, where it's like, okay, this is like where we're grinding it out. This is truly in like it's almost like there was two different me's existing at the same time in the Gami Gang space, where it's like, okay, there's this version of me that wrote all these songs in 2019, 2020. And then there's this now completely like can't be that headspace person that is like making it happen, the producer chair now. Like I'm trying to just honor my past self's like commitment to writing these songs, just being like that. But then that person was also the one that wrote the Brightest Days and like had these demos. So it was like always, okay, yeah, this is like hard or whatever. It's getting like tough. And there's like a process and like, okay, we're kind of getting back to this grind every day. It's like, what more needs to be done? But that's this light at the end of the tunnel is like, before we knew touring's going to come back, oh, we have this collection of songs that's really fun. Now, right where that light of the tunnel starts being more realistic for us, a real light at the end of the tunnel comes and it's like, oh, you could tour again in 2021. And then we're like, oh shit, we should probably do that. Like we should probably play some shows. And like, there's people who didn't even know we existed before this pandemic started that, you know, probably want to see this band play and like, we want to play shows again. And it's a very, you know, obviously a very intimate thing, like to experiences like being at a show and playing shows. And it was a really special time to start that again. So we kind of had this gap year where it was like, okay, we're not really recording that much stuff. We're just hitting the road and starting it again. Then in the middle of that, or I guess at the end of that sort of year-ish, not a year, like 6 months, but it all adds up. At the end of that, it was like, okay, we finally have some time. Let's take a couple step back and let's do this mixtape. Like let's do this collection of songs that we've had for a while. And now let's get the recording light at the end of the tunnel. Let's start that, you know, instead of the show version, because we've been in that show mode for such a long time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right, that makes sense.
And then also, I'm sorry, one last thing. I do want to flip back to the writing process for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, 100%.
Because with the 2 EPs that you released and then this mixtape on top of it, you covered a lot of different sounds that you guys haven't put out before. Is there anything that you guys feel like you personally clicked with that you do want to revisit for like a full length or anything? Or is it just kind of like, this was cool to kind of test out, but we're going to continue with, you know, our traditional sound?
Yeah, I actually like, it's at this point now where like, I really don't know. And I think that's kind of fun. It's like, there is a space, I think, on every project that we do where we can access a more traditional sound for us. Like there's songs on like I think Few and Far Between is pretty close to like a lot of shit that you would hear on Gami Gang or Somewhere City. That same can't be said for Kobayashi Maru or for Picture Frame, right? So there's always going to be like these little spots where we can fit in stuff like that, and there's always the this is like it's funny when with the Bryce is almost the antithesis of the way we used to do it. I feel like the way we used to do it was like we would have this Gami sound and then we pull other shit and be like, all right, here's where we're doing this around the Gami sound. Here's where this easy chord breakdown comes around the Gami sound. Here's this bossa nova part around the Gami sound. You know, like we just would put it in. This one was kind of the like, all right, let's do this song. Like let's do this surf rock song. And then later we'll like try to figure out how do we make this Origami Angel? You know, like how does it come together? And I think that like there's definitely like a happy medium there for whatever we choose to do in the future. Where we can access a heavier thing going into a more melodic thing, going into a softer thing, and just kind of always, I'm never going to like turn down the idea of utilizing more dynamics. You know, there's going to be spots in the future where it's like there's shit that's heavier than maybe anything we've done yet. But there's also going to be spots that are like softer. There's also going to be spots that are like, oh, we're back in the jazz bag, or, you know, we're doing acoustic things that we haven't really touched yet. You know, there's always going to be space for that, and it would be foolish to not indulge, you know.
Yeah,
exactly.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this mixtape for the first time? Should you do in the car with friends in the dark with headphones on? Is it a workout record, party record? What do you personally recommend?
Wow, I haven't thought of this. Okay, so the perfect way to listen to this, maybe on like a walk. Maybe like run the headphones in, go on a walk, and I feel like it's very to me, I've done that before. I would do that with the demos. Like I would walk around and listen to them, and it felt very like it's like isolated but not. Like you're like still in the nature, you know, you're still in this world that exists. And I think it's really fun to listen to something like this that's pretty short form, you know, like get a 20-minute walk in. That's a good, that'd be achievement. That'd be the most I did all day, you know.
Nice little power walk.
Yeah, a nice little power walk, get it in. There's gonna be moments where it's like very fast and exciting. That's where you get your power walk steps in. There's gonna be moments where it's chiller. It's gonna be, you get looking out, you get the ukulele solo song, and then that's when you can like chill out a little bit, look at your phone, check, you know, do all this stuff. How far did I walk? And then come back, and then that would be my one. In this summer, on a nice day, maybe a cloudy day, where it might rain. I used to do that all the time when I was a kid. When it was going to rain in the summer, I'd just be like, all right, I'm going to go on a walk or go on a run or something like that.
Right now.
So I think that's the spirit. I play wiffle ball with my friend. Like we would always do that in the storm in the summer. Like we're like, yeah, let's go play wiffle ball.
Fuck yeah. Okay. Wiffle ball.
That would be, this is a wiffle ball album. What's it? What are you saying?
Wiffle ball is the one where it's like, oh my god, it's like a little plastic, like almost cone thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's like a baseball, but it has like these holes in it. So it's like you throw it like a baseball. Are you thinking about the? I know the one you're thinking of though. It's like it
has like almost like feathers at the end of it.
Yeah, it's like that's not badminton, is it? Is
That's
that
what
it?
I was thinking.
It's badminton?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's got
or something else.
It's got the little ball on top of it, and then it's the cone. Yeah, that's badminton.
That's badminton?
Yeah.
Badminton. We all learned something.
There you go. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Shane. So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this mixtape for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Sunny, rainy, and Gami.
Nice.
Fuck yeah.
All right. So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this record to invoke in your listeners?
I kind of want this to invoke like almost the, not nostalgia, but just like what a season would be. You know, when I think back about like, like the summer after my senior year of high school, right? Like there's all this like sad shit that happened, but there's also all this cool stuff that happened. There's also this amount of freedom that I had. Felt nice outside. There was like, 7, maybe 8 different feelings I could have immediately snapping back into that mode. And I would hope that it almost makes people feel like they're going through a season with a lot of different memories in it.
I love that.
That's actually really fucking cool. All right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this mixtape, positive or negative?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that's just like the most important to me is, so when we were in the studio with Drew, Drew sings and plays guitar and writes all the songs in another band called Intervention, which is super sick. They're playing all three of the release shows that for the Brightest Days release shows that are happening in DC in July. But so Drew has done all his own records before. He's done a lot of other bands in Florida. But what was really great was getting into the studio and the space with him. Sorry, getting to the room with him, because he has a perspective as a vocalist that was just really, really helpful. And he really, really like challenged me vocally. Like it was an experience where instead of where I usually would go in vocally and he'd be kind of just like, oh, that's good enough, or this is fine, like this will be good enough for the record or whatever. He heard things in my voice that I could be doing. He heard things in my voice that that I wasn't doing that he thought would make sense. He just heard different dynamics in certain spaces, and it was incredibly valuable. But he did kick my ass about it, and it made me want to be that much better. It was like one of the moments where I was like, all right, if he thinks I can do this, I gotta like start taking the vocal part of this a little bit more seriously than I do. Because I'd had this conversation with some people before where it's like, I'm like the singer in this band, but I've always considered myself more of a guitarist, more of a songwriter. But it's like now I'm starting to see it's like, okay, well, everyone else sees me as a singer, and I should probably start doing that. Like I should probably start doing that for myself. And taking it as seriously, just because I don't know, it was very inspirational. But yeah, he challenged the hell out of me. Just like, you know, it's so you can get very demoralized as a singer where it's like you do take and you're like, oh, is that good? And they're like, I don't think so, bro. But that wore off pretty quick, where I was realizing it's like, okay, this person just literally wants me to be the best that I can and thinks that I'm doing better than I am right now. It got into this more of like the way that like a baseball practice would go when I was a kid, where I'm like, okay, if I fuck this up, it's not because I'm a bad person, you know, like it's because this person thinks that I can do a lot better. And it's good that they think I am better than that, you know, because now I should as well. And it quickly flipped to that where I was like, okay, cool. And I almost enjoyed the challenge of it at that level. And yeah, I think it is the best I've ever felt vocally, and Drew has so much to do with that, where he just pushed very hard.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you had someone there to push you, and like you're able to quickly, you know, kind of shake off the fact that it's not a personal attack, you know.
Yeah, definitely not, especially when it's like that's one of my best friends on this earth, you know. So nothing could be a personal attack with someone like that. And when you have that relationship with someone, it's like they could say whatever and you're just like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
makes sense. So for this question, we need you to picture you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
Ooh, I've had so many in my days. I tend to have like different phases. Before, when I was a little bit more reckless, I would get a pack of David's sunflower seeds, and I would go through a whole pack in one day, which is like, I think something around ballpark estimate 3,000% the amount of sodium that you're supposed to take in 100%. One day.
Yeah.
So I was destroying my throat. It was so dry. I stopped doing that a couple of years ago, and I'm off the seeds now. Like that was like a big thing. I love the seeds. But I literally have not had one in such a long time, just because of that. There's this last tour, what was I doing? I had a classic. Oh shit. So why is it not in my head? I'm not in the flow, so I can't just go. I always get a Nerd's Rope. Okay. That is like my number one. I'll always get a Nerd's Rope. And do y'all know? It's the Chex Mix. Are they called Muddy Buddies? Do you know those ones?
Oh yeah,
yeah. With the cookies and cream one of that is a go-to for me at this point in my life. Before, it's been like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch bar that they make.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
That one's really, really good. I used to do the hot tamales, like the Mike and Ike's that are hot or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
That was a weird arc. That was like probably like a year and change ago.
It's a bad era.
that was a little psycho. did that. What else did we do? I don't know. There's been some times, but right now it's Muddy Buddies, a Nerd's Rope. Swedish Fish used to be one back in the day, but now this day and age, a Nerd's Rope, Muddy Buddies, and a gas station Pedialyte potentially, like whatever their thing is. That's the tour lifesaver right there. Just pre-hydrating for dying in the heat of New Mexico or Denver or wherever, or not heat, but like the elevation and stuff. It's just like got on that on this last tour, cranking a Pedialyte every couple of days. Never felt better in my life.
Fuck yeah.
A lifesaver.
Straight up.
So on the topic of food, if Origami Angel was a dish, what dish would Origami Angel be and why?
Ooh, wow. Wow, yeah. It's tougher now that there's so many different sounds out there.
Yeah.
I would say on this record, we're for sure like a ice cream, but not like a cone. Like we're the one you get in a cup, and it's like a cotton candy-ish thing. I would say that's what we are right now. It's definitely like ice cream, but as an overall, what is Origami Angel? I don't know. Yeah, that's tough. I would say overall, we're probably an all-star special from Waffle House. That's what I would. That's what I would say, because you get a little bit of everything, right? You get this waffle, maybe with chocolate chips. You get these eggs, maybe scramble them, for whatever. You get this bacon or this sausage. You get what you want. Get the hash brown with something, without something. You get this toast, get this raisin toast or this white toast. You can get
the biscuit.
Exactly. Grits if you want, if that's your flow. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I would say that if right now looking at the whole thing of Origami Angel, we are a all-star special.
Nice.
Fuck yeah, that's actually my go-to orders. That's beautiful that you said that.
Same.
Fuck yeah.
So for this last question, we know there's only two of you guys, but we're gonna put you in a horror movie. Who is going to die first, and who's surviving until the end?
Oh man, see, this is loaded because Pat's stronger than me. So I feel like he's got the strength, but I don't know. I feel like Pat definitely gets to the end. I feel like I'm the type to die trying to save both of us, like just to be like thinking I'm smarter than the zombie or the killer, but I'm not. Like, I'm like, fuck it. I got him. No, I don't. Like,
you don't got him.
I don't have shit. He is not cooking shit. And yeah, I'll end up done for sure. But yeah, I think out of us two, he's definitely lasting longer than me in that. But if we did our whole crew, like our whole touring crew, for whatever reason, I think with more people around, I'm actually lasting to the end. But if it was us two, he's lasting longer for sure.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Fair. That's fair.
So as I said, that's all the questions you have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
We just dropped the album, a mixtape called The Brightest Days. That's cool. We got these 3 release shows coming up in July. You can find us coming to maybe your country this year, if your country is the United Kingdom or Japan and the United States or Washington, D.C. That's really it. But we'll be around. Riot Fest right around the corner. Doing all this shit. Having a PG County summer. Yeah, that's all I got. Anything from y'all?
No.
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you for now. This has been Ryland from Origami Angel, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.